It's 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News, where we explain marijuana laws so you can change them. Today, we're joined by Kenneth Mason from Equibis out of Chicago. We're going to be talking about accounting for cannabis entrepreneurs. So let's just get right into it. Hey, Kenneth. What's up,
Hey, how
Tom?
you guys doing? What's going
Hey,
on?
Yo,
Kenneth, thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about what y'all are doing at Equibis?
Of course, I'd love to. That's what I love doing more than anything else. Um, obviously, I'm the CEO of Equibis, an accounting firm, a small accounting firm, pretty much with the community in mind, right? And so when I started the company, it was pretty much us trying to make a difference in underserved communities that blossomed into the cannabis industry after my personal stint with really trying to help with the in the industry from a social justice standpoint. I found myself becoming more and more involved, and then I quickly saw that there was a need because I spoke with folks who ran cannabis companies, and they could not tell me they couldn't answer any of my questions when I, of course, geeked out about finances, and so I quickly saw an opportunity. But even with that, we still held tight to the heart of the company, which was making an impact in our underserved communities.
awesome. Yeah, man. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast and for tuning in. Don't forget to smash those likes and subscribe and get in touch with him. If you have some questions about cannabis accounting, we're going to go over quite a few of them. And we also have some news to cover,
Yeah. So, what does your tagline "Accounting for Good" mean?
So it still kind of plays into the community aspect of why we even started. And so with that in mind, the good of the community is where the accounting for good comes from, and how we wanted to provide resources, the knowledge, and even some of the funding opportunities for the small business owners and, again, these communities that I grew up in, that a lot of the business owners that I know are in, and where we saw businesses close, open and close right back. And really wanted to be able to provide them with those resources. And so, again, the heart of everything that we do is our community.
That's really cool, man. And Illinois just handed out, and this is one of them. It's not very cool. It's like you get it in a Word doc, and you're like, wow, that's what a craft grower's license look like. That's what people have been trying so hard to get. And it's just in a Word doc, and it's valid for a year. But the community, as you mentioned, and so this is tied to a piece of real estate, and there's only 32 that got awarded so far. They picked 40, but only 32 sent in the $40,000 application license fee. And so now there's all these communities that are out there that can really benefit from public-private partnerships and other types of programs that because like the people that won, they are needing the investment dollars. It's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see that a lot, and that was kind of the concern that a lot of us had, and a lot of folks who were applying had from the get-go when the initial dates for when the licenses were supposed to be distributed, or the winners were supposed to be picked, and obviously the timeline from that last year till now, you have folks who were trying to hold on to real estate.
Yep.
And had leases and had to pay these landlords. But folks who qualified, especially with the social equity standpoint, they didn't have the funds to hold on to these spaces. And so it got pretty tight for a lot of people. And so some people actually said, you know what, we can't do this. So next go around.
So all the licensees, all the applicants had to have land, actual title. Like that was my biggest fear here in Washington when we did licenses was I can't pay rent on a gamble. I can't hold a thing and hope that this is going to be it's bad enough I'm trying to pay the rent for the kids.
Exactly. And then not to be able to be in operations to even try to, sell anything to make that money up, right?
Right. Yeah, it's something else. But now, like, the money finds you after you get the license. And so the social equity aspect of it, and maybe they were capital poor before they got that email and then that one-page Word document that says they have a license. But now that they have that, people are knocking on their doors to get in. And then with the community as such an important part of your business, it's one of those things where the community was something that I wrote into the application very often. And I put that as like a member of the team as well. And now it's like, well, everybody's going to try to poach and move these licenses around. I'm like, hang on a second there, bro. You need to have the state say you can do that. You just can't say like, well, we're going to move it over here now. No, that's not what the deal was. What's your reason for moving it over there? Do you have a reason? And then if you want to move it, you only have 90 days. And so like you basically have to have a new facility ready to go and then move. Yeah.
Everything has to be set in stone. I think a lot of people thought that the only milestone was to get the license. There was a lot to go into, and I think a lot of us who've been around and worked with some other folks can tell and just let them know. But a lot of folks thought that it was just getting the license, and that was the biggest hurdle. I'm like, there's a whole lot left in the chamber.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kenneth, we just got an agreement. We're talking, and you're part of a winning application as well. So that's the question, right? So they won with the $40,000 that they were able to throw away at a guess, and then now they're millionaires. But
no, they're paper millionaires. They aren't millionaires until the money's in the bank.
Until the money's in the bank.
That's the thing.
Just because this is this is between like $6 and $10 million, and so not yet, and that's really interesting that the state has done this. And now we have these community partnerships where it's like, well, are we going to be able to bring this business to these communities and make them a success story in those communities? There's like Jahan Gordon's our rep here in Peoria, and she had just made the news for getting a $10 million grant out of the $45 billion capital works projects. Wow. So now I'm like sitting there going like, hey, let's go get some of that money for right over there. And then like, we're bringing business back. We just need 2, 4, 5. She asked for 10 million. We're not asking for 10. Jahan asked for 10. We just want $3 million.
We just want a couple. Yep. Seriously.
But how do you do that next step? So now you've had the property, you got the license, but how do you pull in that more equity? Because you need that for the dirt, for the seeds, for the farmers, for the employees that are going to weed and give nutrients to your plant, and then the transport, because eventually I know you're an encompassing as far as like you do the bookkeeping and you're doing accounting, but the fundraising. How do we get to the 3 million now?
So two pieces to that. So fortunately, the two applications or licenses now, they were well backed and funded from a capital standpoint, so they won't have any issues. But for a lot of people, and Thomas kind of alluded to you, once you have that paper, people started coming out the woodworks to come find you. Yep. They were waiting for this. I think you have some people who are traditional investors who were trying to get their hands on some of the licenses. They couldn't do that. So for them, the next step was, hey, I want to invest in some of these companies who do get it. And so I'm noticing that there are people who are asking me, because most people might not realize this. You think the only people that would come to me, our firm as an accountant, would be, dispensary owners, farmers, etc. But we also get investors who are like, look, I want to make sure that this company that I'm putting my money into, they're on their P's and Q's, right? And so we actually had people coming to us, kind of just trying to gauge and see what was going on, so they can have an opportunity themselves to invest in some of these companies. It's Chicagoland area, Illinois. That's it's a big market for them, and that's what they came in thinking. So it really wasn't hard, and it hasn't been hard once you're at that point, especially in a place where we just now distributed these licenses. You had people that were waiting. And so to really answer your questions as far as the next step, it really is, I don't want to say picking picking investors. You still have to go about it the right way in terms of who are investing. But I've noticed a lot of people were already gauging and trying to build relationships with potential investors. Everybody has people now that are interested now, right? Again, no money has been put in any bank account yet, but there are I don't think anyone that I'm aware of have had issues with people wanting to invest. It's just getting to that next step of, all right, we have potential investors. Now what do we do?
Now we can start talking about your term sheet. And if you are one of those winners that needs one of these, you can find me on IG at Cannabis Industry Lawyer, and then I'll call Kenneth to check my math. Now, one of the things is, where does this valuation on the piece of paper being $6 to $10 million come from? That's interesting. And then once you actually see it in your financial models, and so when we put a line item in our financial models for an EBITDA valuation, and we do a spread for our EBITDA valuation from a 4.5 to a 6.5 multiplier. If you guys are following this, you might be able to get investors. Welcome to Cannabis Legalization News. Yeah.
But you made it this far.
Right. You made it this far. So you're in the right track.
Yep. So how do people then structure, or what types of structures would you advise? Or in fact, if we were spitballing here, just a couple of girls talking after school, how would you structure a capital infusion for these new license holders that are looking to help capitalize their buildings and also round out the operational excellence that's on their team?
Right. So, well, one, a lot of it, you do have to go back to the drawing table with these investors, because some of them are asking for specific things, right? And so some of them want to see specific things, and that may deal with, again, the financial projections. They're starting to become more aware of, like, hey, what is the industry entity structure looking like? I want to say maybe, a handful of years ago, you had people that were throwing money at these companies without doing their due diligence, right? Which was weird, because these were traditional investors who, in a normal, in most industries, they would go through the gambit to make sure that this company is someone that they want to invest in, right? And so I think more people are being diligent about it, and so they're requiring, like, hey, we need to know entity structure, we need to see who's all on your team, we need to see organization structure and things like that. And so pretty much having a well put together business plan, which you should have after applying, and entity structures, everything should be there, but structured in a way that you can present to the investors, and of course show yourself in a good light. Investor deck pitches, having those financials. From my experience, people want to see the first 3 years and then 3 to 5 years as well. So really making sure that you have those financials. I think that's one of the biggest things. The financials, they want to see, all right, well, how much money do you think you're going to be making in the next 3 years? Because every investor wants a return on their investment.
Do you help with the financial modeling at your firm?
Absolutely. That's I feel like it's all we've been doing lately.
Me too. It's so much fun. Let's talk about, because I maybe after the show, I'll get in touch with you to work and participate on a financial model for a dispo, because mine is clunky. I want a better input model for my financial model on my dispos, but I like.
You got to get into it,
man. Yeah, but that's how you do it. And then, like, one of the things that I like to do is I like to refresh my models to take into consideration the diminution of the price of flour. So my models start at $32.50 for wholesale, and they'll go down to $2,200. Now, do your models like to do that?
So yeah. So what I like to do in general, though, I like to have different scenarios, right? So we have what we call the best case scenario, but people like to see it makes them feel good. We have what we think is actually going to happen, and not necessarily the worst case scenario, but not the best, right? And it's you don't do as well as what we think is going to happen, but just to show and kind of give a perspective of where a business is possibly going to be in the next couple years, right, from a financial perspective. So I know you say you like to refresh it, and I personally like to always update it. Even after the first draft, we have we continually update it because new information comes out. And if anyone had their eyes open for the last year and a half, stuff changes quite often, and you can find yourself in the middle of a pandemic, which changes everything, right? And so continually updating based on the current business environment. But yeah, so they're always updating until we finally present to an investor.
Yeah, and I like to
scenarios.
Absolutely, man. And I like to have it like, so I'll put like, my pricing for my collateral based firm, I'll be like, no, this is our Q3 pricing. And so like, I'm like, no, and guys, update your decks. And so like on the decks that we'll be talking with, they'll have like a date, and sometimes it's a month, but then also there's decks for different types of investors. Are you pitching for real estate because you need to build a farm? That's a different pitch than you're trying to, get the right operational talent and brand management talent in there so that you can differentiate your product. They usually are different, kettles of fish, but
yeah, it's like you said, when you want to update the inputs, the things that will change how much revenue, what kind of expenses you have. There's so many different nuances to it, but it has to be included if you want to get a quality picture of what you think is going to happen.
This is why it's important you have either a CPA or a lawyer on your team. I mean, this is not your hippie grandpa's weed, this is not, I buy a QP, I'm going to break it up in ounces, save one for myself, mark up the other ones 25% so it covers my own price, and call it good. I mean, this is actual infrastructure of what business is. I mean, even there's that recent IRS, confidential IRS marijuana guide details audit procedures for the agents to follow. It was an MJ Biz Daily. Do you guys think, like, with that secret document, the IRS talking about, like, possibly, do you think the 280E is going to go away and this is going to be easier for businesses to happen?
It will become easier once federally it becomes legal. I don't think at any point before then we're really going to see them let up. I'm hearing, they say that, all right, as more states become legalized, certain agencies aren't cracking down as much. I'm personally not seeing that. In our experience with my team, we're not seeing that they are lessening up much. But I don't think we're not going to have be clear and free until full federal legalization, which even at that point, I think we're still going to see more in terms of regulations, right? I think that we're going to see more of them actually trying to create more regulated rules and things like that in terms of the industry.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are aware, though. Like, the IRS has been involved in the cannabis industry somewhat. Like here in Washington State, when we were medical, we have this huge chain called Have a Heart, and there was actually a shakedown by an IRS agent on this guy, the owner, for like $1 million because he's all like, I know everything's in cash, and I know you have this, right? Regardless, the guy did or didn't. He was trying to be one of the gray areas out there when you don't have a regulated market. People are saying, I'm a businessman. I'm trying to give you money. Right. And then the IRS, and it can be any arbitrary number. Then I'm sure now they probably have there's a more idea of what someone's pulling in. But the thing is, this guy actually, the
data reported from this cash industry on weed is so beautiful outside of Oklahoma. Is so amazing, right. Immaculate. The only other books that are this good are casino books. I mean, because you have to track every dollar that comes in and goes out of that place. And so they know how much. And that's why it is the lowest hanging fruit. They're like, so when you're talking in the green room, if you're a grower out there and you're the social equity president, consider donating your salary back into the company and working for profits, because your administration, AKA trafficking, you are going to have to pay double tax, IRC 280E tax on your salary, so you might as well not take one, or
it sounds trash.
May also be the harvest manager. And so, what are employee allocations? This is a very important topic for our
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, in order to answer that, you kind of got to take a couple steps back and got to briefly explain 280E. It's an IRS code. It's a code in Internal Revenue where cannabis companies, essentially, because we're talking about cannabis companies cannot have any deductions for their taxes, right? No expenses. However, by looking at the definition of a 280E and the language is you're pretty much being taxed, instead of on profits like a normal business, you're being taxed on gross receipts. So you're thinking, my gross revenue. Well, the IRS defines gross receipts as, all your total revenue that you receive, the income you get, less less any cost of goods sold, right? So cost of goods sold are sold, any cost related to being able to prepare a product for sale, such as, you know, if you're a dispensary, you gotta, well, if you're a cultivation farm, well, you need seeds in order to grow, right? Well, those are cost of goods sold.
Oh, 420.
420 somewhere, everybody.
420 somewhere.
Take a minute. And if you like 2AE sexy talk and other news, check, like, and subscribe. Cannabis legalization.
Thanks for the plug, Miggy. I really appreciate it. But yeah, and so you have to allocate, is your employee COGS or ordinary and necessary expenses of which you are allowed no deduction for? And so like common and ordinary, what's the buzzword in accounting lingo? Because we know COGS, but what's the other one? Is it ordinary and common, or
it's general and administrative expenses, right? So if you're, say, like a CEO that doesn't actually help, right, that's not a grower, who's not back there actually you know, helping harvest and trimming and doing all these different things and getting the plant ready for sale, you're not, you know, you're just an administrative worker. You think yourself, all right, I'm the CEO, I should be able to write this off. No, not quite. You make decisions. You don't necessarily get the product ready for sale. So you're not a cost of goods sold.
You're a trafficker.
You're a trafficker.
Yeah.
You're an administrative trafficker.
Right. So are you COGS or are you trafficking, you know?
Oh, wow. But that's just crazy, though. I mean, like the comparison for 280E, right, would be like, say, alcohol, for lack of a better one, like a brewery versus the grow, right? Like the brewery, they can probably write off all the gas they go and taxes probably on the way or whatever they incur, or you know the wheat and barley, right?
Right. They everything, because they're not a federally illegal or scheduled drug, right?
Yeah.
So they can write off everything that's a business related expense. A dispensary can't write off their advertising expense, right?
Damn.
They can't write off all of their rent, all of their utilities. They can't write off you know, merchandise. You say you got you know, hats and you sell whatever it is, you know, lighters with your logo on it. You can't write that stuff off.
Nope.
Well, now, Tom, you've said, though, you kind of can, though, but you have to layer it like a hospital. Is that what you were saying?
Well, managed services agreements, but what he was just describing is your IP brand management company. And so you would have a name, you would have trademarks, you would have genetics, you would have contracts with, who's your favorite rap artist from Chicago, Ken? Yeah.
I want to say it, but it's like he's been screwing up the last. You know, okay, my favorite rapper of all time, Kanye West.
You have an exclusive agreement to make Kanye West social equity weed. That is IP that goes, and that you might need to pay a reasonable royalty fee. Kanye, please don't call me, but you know you can hit me at Cannabis Industry Lawyer, and then we'll follow up with Ken. We'll make sure it's papered real well. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's like, I'm sorry, we're sold out. Why? Are you kidding? Yeah.
There's an example of that, though, of a multi-tiered producer who's also involved in other stuff with the swag. It's cookies, right? Like Burner has the weed brand out there, but he had a clothing brand out first, and then they're all kind of integrated to the one.
That's what I want to do with Brax Family Agriculture. So Brax Family Ag, and then it's just, I get to be Puff Daddy, and I'm just like writing deals, and then like, no, you need this brand, and okay, now we're gonna make sure that you get this type of royalty for that, and then all the growers, you can kind of appeal to their egos, be like, come on, don't you want to hustle your own strain, bro?
So, well, the interesting part about that, with obviously, you know, people that you want to build your brand, so of course that comes in different forms, and you have the merchandise, etc., etc. Well, the IRS pretty much is saying, well, if that's connected to the business of, again, you're trafficking drugs, right? Then that's considered part of the business. We call, in the accounting world, we look at the business activity from the perspective of substance over form. You know, substance, what's actually happening versus the form. You have people that say, all right, we have two different companies. One selling merchandise, one is selling weed. They're both under the same roof. They're both 2 feet apart. You know, is it two different companies? Are they two different companies? Well, the IRS is like, we're going to look at the substance, not the form. The form of being the two entities. No, we're looking at what's going on. Now, with some of those companies, like say Cookies, they're able to say, like, we have a legitimate business selling merchandise. We're making millions of dollars off of X, Y, and Z. It's profitable. This business could stand alone all by itself. If aside from selling marijuana,
I don't know.
But
you're right.
No. But
this is a case from 2018 tax court that Kenneth is talking about, and he's absolutely right. And so it's that reasonableness, and so like if I'm sitting there with Brax Family Ag just inking deals and making sure that the royalties are all coming from the sale of weed, tax court's going to look right through it and say, no, you're trafficking, bro.
That's crazy though about the reasonableness that you guys are talking about, as far as like you have to first be successful at one thing, and then you can do what the fuck you want after that. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, seriously though, like we have here in Washington State, Dabstars. And then now they're multi-state and everything. But the guy started off as a T-shirt company. Like, I know him. Like I was like, oh, that's a cool logo you got, bro. I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere. Motherfucker's a millionaire now. Because he's MSO, multi, deals and licensing for a really good name. Like, that started out as a T-shirt. Like, it's just crazy that you have to show fruition first before you can say, why can't I be both? Why can't I be Budweiser and Coke? And I mean,
I think that's why branding is important, man. I think that's part of the name of the game. You have to plan financially, but if you want to win, it has to be a long-term game. You have to look at it long-term, and branding is going to be what takes you there. But IRS, they don't care about the branding. They don't care about X, Y, and Z. They want to look at, wait, how much money we know you owe us, right? And how can we get that back? But also, like, hey, again, that their reasonableness, right? Is this a company that can stand on its own? I want to say there were companies who were trying to write off most of their cost of goods sold, or not cost of goods sold, a lot of the expenses to, again, let's say that merchandise company, right? They want to say, hey, most of maybe the utilities or rent is going on the financials of the merchandise company. And so again, the IRS are trying to find, again, Tom said, low-hanging fruit. There's no real differentiation between those two companies. They're under the same roof, selling the same stuff. You're just trying to outsmart the IRS, who's been in this game long enough to know that this is happening.
Yeah. They caught Capone, remember?
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, he didn't go down for what we know he did, but
luckily they're understaffed right now.
Oh, the IRS hung up on me today. And so like I got a lease for my company, have a car so we can drive to the trade shows. And they're like, oh, we need your EIN letter. And I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at my files. I'm like, gosh, where is it? I know it's in here somewhere. I eventually found it. But, I'm like, I'll just contact the IRS and get myself another EIN letter. It won't take me that long. The IRS, you go to a web page and the IRS tells you to call a phone number, and then you call the phone number and the IRS hangs up on you. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, wait, they didn't tell you to go to the website again? That's I had to make a couple calls, of course, last week. And it was like, hey, you can visit the website. I'm like, well, I got the number from the website. What are you talking about? Yeah.
It's a never-ending loop. I love it.
I love American customer service.
You gotta dial all the 1 through 9 different options before you just decide to choose any one, so you can speak with someone that can hopefully point you to the right direction.
Yeah, well, let's help out these new cats that are getting licenses, and there's going to be a lottery. Basically, I believe we've taped this for Sunday, or is this Sunday show? And so there's another lottery, another 55 licenses hit. There's probably going to be another 60 grows later. I'm not sure how many infusers. So let's talk about, next steps. If you were in their shoes right now, and you kind of are, it sounds like you're affiliated with one of the growers.
All right. And so one, you need to assess your own situation, whether or not you have the capital, right? Or if you don't, you need to go start, looking out for those investors. But if you are a funder, or if you have those potential investors lined up, dude, it's so important that you do two things. One is you have the right team around you, right? I think a lot of people I think in just business in general, they get in not really anticipating all of the different areas that you kind of need some level of expertise in. You need to have some awareness of the different compliance issues, especially in cannabis. You have to have the financial expertise. A lot of entrepreneurs don't. You know who do? CPAs, accountants, etc. They have the financial expertise, but it's critical to have types of people on your team that are aware, that can continue to focus specifically on those issues. So I would say, in short, is making sure you have the team together, that everyone has the responsibility. Because, well, theoretically, you would have had it already when the application and things like that. But I think really honing in on getting your team together, and from that standpoint, starting to build out your procedures and policies for how you're going to actually operate.
I think you made a great point, though, of having people knowledgeable because, and again, with having an accountant and a lawyer here, but also like when you talk about the actual grow, the physical place that's going to be built, it's going to have to get built to code, and you're going to have power requirements for all the lights you add and all this other stuff that you add, and then that place is going to get inspected again, not just by the code, but by the whatever governing bureau you guys got in any state. But what though, to get to that point, what are your financial options? Like, you guys are in financial circles, right? Like, there's no legal, or not legal, but there's no traditional ways as far as the banking goes and everything like that. How do we get angel investors, or how do we reach out to these people?
Dude, so that's pretty much what I'm seeing is the
team.
So you're funded, right? Private investors, private lenders, because you have some people that are looking to just lend it out, and it kind of take place of the bank, so to speak, right? They don't want to invest long term as an having share of equity or anything. They're like, hey, we want interest on these payments, et cetera, and they're private. Crowdfunding. I see people actually there, some people I guess who are in financially well-off circles who have groups of friends or family who are able to invest, and so they kind of go through a presenting to the family, so to speak, and they get the group family together and like, hey, this is the plan, this is what I'm doing. And those who come from good stock, I guess.
You know what they call those really rich people?
What do they call them, Tom?
Family offices.
Family offices.
Jesus. They call them family offices.
They let everybody in the family works there. They're trying to make money, man, which I cannot. But yeah, so in terms of finding those people, what I've suggested, all right, and so I don't know what's the best case, but what I've suggested and what I've seen work, because LinkedIn, to some people's surprise, is a gold mine for our industry. One, they're not going to delete your account if you're in the cannabis industry, for starters. Second, most professionals, if not all of them, are on LinkedIn, and then obviously investor type professionals are on there as well, and they're in different groups. Because I actually have a lot that are reaching out to me pretty frequently because they look, a cannabis accountant, he must have cannabis clients, and so they're on LinkedIn. They're there. You can search them. It's pretty easy to find them, and give them a spiel. But I'm finding that they're looking for you guys. They're looking for the license holders. So putting yourself out there on LinkedIn, for example, making it known that you guys are license holders, and that and wording in the right way that you're open for investments.
Building a team.
Yeah.
Do you think they're doing more vetting since you're being hit more? Like I joke that I think it's ridiculous that Medman's still in business and Blazarian got money and High Times keeps nickel and dime everybody. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, the potential is out there and all these people just squandering money away.
Just throwing money away. Absolutely. I don't get like Medman. That is, it's almost baffling.
There's a lot of real estate money out there, though. Like, they made weed appeal to people that were already investing in real estate. There's trillions of dollars of real estate. So if you could make them wrap their head around that, I could see them throwing stupid amounts of money, and then
And we're kind of talking about this earlier, like you have people who are just so wrapped up in I don't even know who coined the term, but there's the green rush, right?
Mhm.
And so they have their minds so wrapped up, I think, in trying to be one of the early, or people
FOMO.
that make it. Yeah, fear of missing out. So the normal due diligence that they would take before they invest in someone or a company, they're almost like, screw it, I just want to give you my money. And I've seen people who are well known, that we all probably know, who have tossed money at a company while doing any of the due diligence, then come out and like to some of us accountants and say, hey, I'm losing my money. What's going on? Can you come help X, Y, and Z? And you're just sitting there like, you're you, and you mean to tell me that not once did you say, hey, do you have this in place? Can we see who's on your maybe a board of directors if you have a corporation? Who do you guys or like, can we see some quality financials, etc.? They just said, here's my money, you have a license here. And it's just like, seriously, I mean, it's positive for the person with the license, but in terms of doing your due diligence.
Yeah, I just figure if you make after 7 figures, you don't know how to use Google. I just figured that. I just don't know.
No, it's very strange. Like Kenneth's right, because I'll have clients that'll come, then they want to sue. So they haven't talked to their accountant about the financial wisdom of it, and now it's gone, and so they want to sue, and then they're like, I'm gonna have to charge another $50,000 on this one. Like, how much did you give them? We got to go get that back. That's gonna take some time.
That's gonna take some time. I think I need another meal.
Yeah. But it's just baffling that you'll see, and people will do hundreds of thousands of dollars of errors, and they're like, well, I saw him. I'm like, what do you mean you saw him? Yeah.
He exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had an internet webpage made out of Wix. He must have been legit.
It still has the Wix in the, how some of the websites still have Wix in the actual address.
Right.
He's got like 10 Facebook pages. Like, that's the thing about cannabis, is there's so much potential, and then its potential's dying off. But there was a lot of scams beforehand, a lot of medical scams, a lot of recreational scams. Some of them are still going on in Medman, but it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think some people are like scammers. Not that I know some scammers, but maybe I know some folks. But they're looking at make it quick, get a quick dollar quick, and they know they can get away with it and get out quick. And so I mean, they have an opportunity, so they're doing it. It's just you have people who are throwing so much and then throwing more into something that clearly is a huge red flag.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I am sometimes going like, I hear a lot of good things about mixed light. Oh, premium indoor. I'm like, oh, fine, premium indoor. But, mixed light is evidently cheaper and faster. Right. And like, it's evidently makes some good cannabis. Right. Premium indoor. All right. So
it sounds good.
We're a few $1 million light on the build out budget. Mixed light. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun. And so like, what types of things do you need to do when you're onboarding a new client for a dispensary to help with their bookkeeping?
So it depends on, are they starting up or have they been in business already? Because if they've been in business, 9.999 times out of 10, they need some cleanup, some heavy cleanup, and they're late on their tax return, which I don't even know why. I feel like once you get into the industry, you should already know that there's almost like a target on your back, right? So the first thing you should do is, even if you're not ready to get someone who's doing the day-to-day weekly accounting, etc., find some type of financial consultant. But to answer your question, onboarding, that's what we do. We first need to look and see how much needs to be cleaned up, right? And then we start helping implement those policies, internal control procedures, which everyone should have, right? Everyone needs to have those internal control procedures. Who's making if you have a bank account, the deposit, or who's counting the cash, or who's putting it in the vault, the safe, whatever. This is going to help you keep yourself from getting not only in trouble with the government, who's going to be asking for, you to keep track of, whether it's through metric or whatever, to keep track of everything. You need to make sure you keep track of your money yourself, because theft is a thing, right? And so we kind of lay the groundwork. We start off by laying the foundation of your policies, your procedures, simultaneously with cleaning up if it needs to be done. But implementing those procedures kind of making sure the way we do things is being introduced and that we get on the same page so that our job is done properly as well. Because what's the point of some financials if you don't read it, you don't understand it, and you don't use it to make better decisions?
When you clean up the books, do you ever find like, holy shit, dude, how did you even make buy in life?
Well, sometimes when I clean up the books, I'm like, where is everything?
Here's my records.
Right.
Well, I got receipts in my pocket. Hold on.
Dude, I wish I had some receipts sometimes. It's like, oh well, we don't know where this is at,
Oh
and
no, we got to get up on QuickBooks quick. But then like that's the other thing, that, and so then banking becomes even an issue where you're going to be paying quite a handsome fee per month. While it's all on the outflow right now, and so like if you want that account, that's cool. Okay, now I got to go build that. Now I got to go get that. And so I'm just, telling everybody that I can talk to, it's like, well, let's get operational. Let's do that. Yeah. And then let's make some cannabis and then let's build out and let's be reasonable people. But that gives me another thing. Like some people, they say that this type of cannabis license, the craft grow, doesn't have the financial models to succeed. What do you think about that?
I think there's definitely a large group of people, mainly folks who are into cannabis well before the legalization, who are seeking that specific type of weed, that good stuff, the craft grow. I think there is the room for them to grow. However, it comes down to them really, at least. All right, I'm going to pull out in my experience with some of the folks that I worked with in the craft space, because some have not done so well, but some have done extremely well. And I think part of it is their location and where they are. I think that's a huge thing that some folks don't maybe think about or realize that plays a role into, how well they do is the region that they're in, where they are locally. But again, we talked about branding before. That's a huge piece. Some people just want some good weed. They know what good weed is too. You know what I mean? You have some people who, I'm going to buy some weed I haven't smoked since, 2004, and they'll buy some stuff from a dispensary and not think twice. We have folks who are, I need the good stuff. And so I think that there is a market for sure. It's tough, but I think in my experience that some have excelled where they are in terms of the region, and then doubling down on their branding and making sure like, hey, we're those guys. We got it like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the branding and then having that reason to stand out and differentiate yourself. So you're selling your product. That's the real important thing. It's great that you have all this canopy space and your financial models say you're going to be pooping out this much cannabis and this much extract. That's cool. And here's your price per pound. Well, that pound sell. That's the real trick. Well,
that's going to be, across all the different verticals, all the different industries. Will it sell? And so that and thinking about that, that's why sometimes the financial modeling beforehand is kind of tricky. You're like, all right, because everybody thinks that they're going to sell everything every time, from the get go. And it's like, let's bring it back some. Let's get into reality. I know some local drug dealers who, couldn't sell everything. Let's just say that. And so,
nobody wants their runs.
But exactly. Your market is only still what? How many producers?
Oh, it's in the teens. There's like 20 licenses, I think. Well, now there's yeah. Well, the craft growers still don't count, but like there was only 22, but I think there was like 19 license holders. So it's just a few people.
Right. I was say with the lack of variety, though, of course, the shit's going to sell. But like if you were actually in a real competitive market, and that's where I think it comes down to in the end is like all these people should be getting ready for federal legalization because it's going to happen. Like get your books in that order, get your business affairs in that order, because
get GMP certified.
GMP, all the proper manufacturer requirements. I mean, this is what cannabis is. It's an edible consumption. It's almost like food.
Yeah, you need more of it. That's why it's a long term. And like we were saying before, it's a long term game and a long term play. Like this isn't just a get rich. This is definitely not a get rich quick scheme, unless you're those in the beginning where you're just
you won the license
Finesse.
and you're gone. And like, you know, thank you. I'll take the $1 million. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Right. Are you investing $1 million? I'll take it. Then you don't see them anymore.
Right.
Well, you're right. I mean, like in the beginning, you didn't win $1 million. You won $1 million, boat with a hole in it that you got to fill up until it starts, producing and staying afloat. Because as an agricultural product, between if say you hire the wrong farmer, now you got spider mites in your first grow, and no one, and then decided to vacuum it off. I mean, just like horrible shit. You don't know who's out there, what's going on.
Yeah, I can imagine. So doing that, let me just vacuum this all up.
I saw that there's a comic strip I follow, and this guy in Boston, there's a Boston grower that did that. No names were named, but some asshole did that. Just like people who use Eagle 2020 and all the other stuff that we don't like. There's people doing the wrong shit.
That's true.
Doing the right shit can be quite expensive.
Very
more likely than not is.
Yeah, you know what licenses do you like the most? Which types of licenses do you think have the most possibility for success?
So I think it's a lot that plays a role into that. Again, like we mentioned the regional aspect. We talked about. Well, we don't think we talked about it. So it depends also on your state. You get each state. There's differences in the way you're taxed. There's differences in the different compliance standards you have to abide by. So and obviously for me, I'm thinking about it a lot from a financial standpoint. So I'm thinking about 280E, which hopefully soon won't even be a thing, right? But for now it is, and it's a reality. So I think about that. Overall, I like cultivations because you get to write so much offensive cost of goods sold compared to like say a dispensary or something, right? I know we talked about deliveries, but
let's help the people watching though. Like we kind of touched on COGS, and here's how you can take your delivery license, because so far only 9 people have punched that ticket, but they have until February to do so, and there's like over 100 winners. If you run it like FedEx, in the sense that you aren't trafficking at all, you are just providing courier services for what? Weed. But like you're not trafficking in weed, you're moving it from place to place. So you can try to classify it that way to see if you can completely avoid IRC 280E. However, audits take a few years to process.
Bingo. So, and that's something that's funny because you would get through a tax season and folks like, oh, I didn't get audited. It must have worked. No. I've seen it, and they are still coming 2-3 years later, right? And like, hey, buddy, we need to see some receipts. We need to see X, Y, and Z, bank statements. If you got a bank account, all these different things, they're still coming. And I think as more states legalize, sometimes we aren't realizing that still is something that we have to continue to be aware of and make that a part of our planning.
Yep.
Yeah, it's no longer buying a QP anymore.
Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can we go to find, follow, get in touch with y'all at Equibis?
Once upon a time, you could follow us on Instagram before Instagram shut us down. Not too long
ago. My goodness.
Yes, and they are allowing us to use Equibis again in another account that we're trying to start. So we're still battling that. But LinkedIn, Equibis, Facebook, Equibis, EQUIBIS. You can follow me on Instagram, daddy_CPA. Not trying to be weird. I'm actually a father of 2. So you can follow us. Then you can come to our website, equibisaccounting.com. Connect with us. We got some blogs, a lot of good stuff that you can read. You can use to prepare for a startup in cannabis, or just to, get your finances together.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. And thanks for tuning in. Everyone, make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with all cannabis legalization news. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Woo.